When you think of the racing game for the N64, the first thing to come to mind is probably Mario Kart 64. It's a classic. People love this game to death. Amazing gameplay, and an awesome cast. If you were to show your mom this roster, she could probably name almost everyone on this list. That's how recognizable this cast has become. Now show your mom the roster from Diddy Kong Racing. She probably only named Diddy Kong. Even after playing this game yourself, you probably wonder who half of these characters are. They literally only appear in this game. It's so weird. You'd think these dumbasses would at least appear in some Donkey Kong spin-offs or like in any other game, but they don't. Sure, these guys do, but that's less than half of this stupid-ass roster. So, who are these guys? Well, I'll tell you. Let's go over Diddy Kong Racing's weird cast. Now, I said this is a roster full of dumbasses, and it is, but that doesn't mean I don't love these dumbasses. These characters radiate so much personality. Just by hovering over them on the character select screen, you could tell what they're all about. The instrument used in the song even changes to help reflect that character's personality. It's such a neat little addition. Like hovering over Pipsy, the theme changes into a cutesy kind of steel drum. Or hovering over Banjo, you hear some dude go fucking crazy on his banjo. This applies to every character on this roster, and it's so cool. This game gets you to know how these characters act just by racing with them. That's all you do in this fucking game. They each have a few lines, and that's it. All you get beyond that is how they feel to play, and the music change I mentioned earlier. Just that is enough to make you actually like these characters. It's super interesting, but I always wondered, what else is there to them? Like, is that all Bumper is? Just some badger who races Diddy Kong? Well, not necessarily. These characters are more than what they seem. Let me show you what I mean. The first character we're talking about is Diddy Kong, and he's someone we're all familiar with. No introductions needed. But why is Diddy Kong racing in this game? Well, he's racing to help out his old friend Timber the Tiger fight off the evil Wizpig, because Wizpig took over Timber's island. So in reality, Diddy Kong isn't actually special at all in this game. He has the same role as everyone else. They're all just helping Timber. If anyone is the main character in this game, it's actually Timber. And if I was just talking about this game on a surface level and not going deeper, that would honestly be all I would have to say about Diddy Kong. I am not joking when saying he's not special in this game. So where is Diddy Kong relevant? Well, he would have been the main character of the cancelled sequel, Diddy Kong Racing Adventure. Don't be confused though. If you know a lot about cancelled Rare games, you may be thinking of Donkey Kong Racing. And yes, that was a thing, but this is a completely separate cancelled game. It's kinda wild. There's a full-on playable prototype of this game. It's cool as fuck. There's not much to do in it, but usually we don't even get to see prototypes like this in such high quality. Regardless, I'm getting a little off track. I'm not here to talk about all the details of this game, but I will give a synopsis of the plot to show Diddy Kong's role. While Diddy Kong is having fun on Timber Island, the Kremlings start kidnapping different Kongs. And while the Kremlings are doing this, Wizpig is turning Congo Island into a giant raceway. And when Diddy Kong returns home, he sees the Kremlings bulldozing the forest, and realizes the whole island is now a racetrack. Diddy Kong then calls all the other racers from the first game and a few other new racers to take back the island. That's pretty much the entire story of Diddy Kong Racing Adventure. There's not much to it, but there was also an earlier version of the story that got scrapped. It had a very similar plot, but the most noticeable change was that Wizpig would have been replaced by a white rhino named Baron Von Snort. And Baron Von Snort has nothing to do with Diddy Kong, but that name is so fire I had to include it somewhere. But let's move on to the actual main character of Diddy Kong Racing, the goated Timber the Tiger. Like I said, Timber is the main character of this game. Diddy Kong ain't shit. Rare seemed to love this dude, sporting his own little Rareware cap mirroring Diddy Kong's Nintendo hat. It's fire. Like I said before, he's the main character because he calls all the racers that appear in the game to Timber Island to help him defeat Wizpig. But he doesn't actually own the island. His parents actually own it. His parents went on vacation away somewhere and left Timber in charge of the island. Timber fucks up and Wizpig takes over the island. The cast of Diddy Kong Racing would then defeat the evil Wizpig and reclaim the ownership of the island back to Timber so he doesn't get in trouble with his parents. That is essentially the general plot of this game, but Timber was supposed to be a character way bigger than he ended up being. Someone who went beyond just Diddy Kong Racing. Let me explain. Before Diddy Kong Racing became what we know it as, it was a completely different racing game known as Pro Am 64 that starred Timber the Tiger as the protagonist. When Rare showed Pro Am 64 to Nintendo, they ended up changing the lead character to Diddy Kong, the game then becoming Diddy Kong Racing. But the Rare team had a fondness towards Timber, still making him the lead in the actual story of Diddy Kong Racing, and then planned into making him have his own full-on game after Diddy Kong Racing's release. It was going to be a 3D adventure game being developed for the N64 known as Dinosaur Planet. So Timber the Tiger would have been the protagonist of this dinosaur planet. He would be a kind of time traveler who would go to the prehistoric ages for an adventure that would play similarly to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. In Diddy Kong Racing itself, there are a bunch of prehistoric themes around Timber Island, so it makes you wonder if they actually had this planned out for a while. Either way, after some time they actually ended up scrapping Timber as the main character for this game, and this game would eventually turn into Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube. This would officially kill off Timber from ever really having his own game, but his fate would officially be sealed when Rare made the Diddy Kong Racing remake for the DS later, and they removed the Rare logo from Timber's cap, replacing it with a Nintendo DS logo instead. It's kind of like they officially disowned Timber. It's kind of fucked up. However, there are some characters that actually ended up in their own titles after Diddy Kong Racing, of course being Banjo and Conker. These characters actually first appeared in Diddy Kong Racing, believe it or not. This would be their debut game, before obviously appearing in their own games later. If you're watching this video, you probably know who they are, but I'll go over them quickly one at a time real quick. There's not too much to say about Banjo. I mean, he's Banjo. If you're watching this, you know who he is. After Diddy Kong Racing, he would star in his own banger game, being Banjo-Kazooie. Then there was Banjo-Tooie, then the Game Boy one, then the Xbox one, then he's gone for 10 years, now he's in Smash. Banjo's dope as fuck. He's a very iconic character. The characters in Banjo itself are fire. I mean, they had Klungo. But according to the Diddy Kong Racing manual, the reason why Kazooie isn't in this game is because Banjo hasn't actually met Kazooie yet. I like that they gave a reason for Kazooie not being here. It's definitely a thing I wouldn't care about if it didn't have a reason, but it having a kind of story reason is a pretty nice touch. Enough Banjo though, we get it, we know who he is. It's time for the other one, Conker. It's unbelievable that this squirrel's in this game, bro. Professional pisser and part-time kart racer. But how the hell did he end up in this family-friendly Diddy Kong Racing? Well, like I said, Banjo and Conker's games weren't out yet. They were still in development when Diddy Kong Racing came out. And at the point of Diddy Kong Racing's release, it was actually planned for Conker to have a family-friendly game. It was known as 12 Tales Conker 64. Pretty much your run-of-the-mill N64 cutesy platformer. Super wholesome and shit. Conker would actually have a release with this wholesome type of style on the Game Boy Color, known as Conker's Pocket Tales. But the console 12 Tales Conker 64 later in development would turn into the crazy-ass Conker's Bad Fur Day, where he is anything but cutesy. It's an actual, real example of a cute Mario-type character going down the bad route in life, just becoming the morally worst person possible. Conker is like the complete opposite of what kind of character you'd expect to be in Diddy Kong Racing. A character you would expect to be in this game is Pipsy, this cute little mouse racer. Now, Pipsy actually kind of has a pretty cool history, mainly to do with how she even became Pipsy. Let me explain. At first, Pipsy wasn't even a mouse. She was a kangaroo named Roo. It was this yellow kangaroo with boxing gloves. There's even textures for her in the game still. However, the problem with Roo and why she wasn't included in the final release is because the team thought that characters would also need to be able to walk around outside of their vehicles. So she was scrapped. People have also thought that her boxing gloves might have been a problem since every other character has their hands free, but at the end of the day, Roo was left to die. The character artist of Rare, Kevin Bayliss, was set to make a new design to replace Roo, so Kevin had an idea. There was this N64 game Rare was working on called Astro Mouse, and it got cancelled, shocker. But even after the game got cancelled, Kevin Bayliss wanted to repurpose Astro Mouse into Diddy Kong Racing as a playable racer. So he decided to replace Roo with Astro Mouse. But then, that got scrapped. because of problems with his spacesuit being too bulky to like fit in the vehicles for the game. So Kevin Bayliss worked on redesigning Astro Mouse, which eventually turned into Pipsy, the tough speedy mouse we know her as today. After she became Pipsy though, there's honestly nothing of note about her. She's an iconic Diddy Kong Racing character. And that's pretty much it. Next on this list we got Crunch the Kremling. He's a pretty cool dude, I like him a lot. Not much to him to be honest, but that's what makes me like him. He's kind of the only character I'd say really relates to Diddy Kong, and what I mean by that is like, you know, he's a Kremling, and that's a Donkey Kong series species. So it makes sense a Kremling would join a Diddy Kong Racing game roster. Why does this specific Kremling show up to race though? Well, he has a little bit of a story reason to show up. Crunch was one of the 2 Kremling spies that was sent by King K. Rool to investigate why Diddy Kong is at Timber Island. They were sent because K. Rool was scared that they were making some plot against the Kremlings. Diddy Kong Racing DS actually shows us what the other spy K. Rool sent looks like. And he looks exactly the fucking same. It's just Crunch 2. So the Kremling spies are spying as they do. Then they see Diddy Kong speed off in a car in the jungle. So Crunch tells Crunch 2 that they should go chase him. Crunch 2 declined and then bolted into the undergrowth. So Crunch says fuck it and decides to go follow Diddy alone. But instead of being a villain like he was supposed to be, he teams up with Diddy Kong and crew to beat Wizpig. There's no given reason why he does this. Crunch doesn't need a reason, because he's Crunch. When Crunch first offers them help, they are very skeptical, like they don't trust Crunch. Which I mean, I would trust Crunch over Conker, personally, but that's just me I guess. They would eventually learn to trust Crunch though, and become friends with him, when they all defeat Wizpig together. There's a little known fact about Crunch though. In development, his name used to be Crash, instead of Crunch. This can even be seen on a German N64 promo VHS tape. The reason it's even in this VHS tape was because for this tape they were using beta footage of Diddy Kong Racing to promote it. The reason why his name changed to Crunch is not necessarily known, but it's most likely because there was already a type of Kremling named Crash. But even earlier in development, when the game was still known as Pro Am 64, Crunch wasn't even a Kremling. He was just a crocodile. Since Diddy Kong became the main character after the switch from Pro AM to Diddy Kong Racing, he was slightly altered to become the fire-ass Kremling we know him as today. Now Bumper. Bumper the Badger is probably my favorite original character in this game. I love him for good reason. He's a cool-ass car racing badger. He's dope as fuck. Of course, like many other characters in this game, he looked different originally, sporting this blue look. It's like the blue colored fur makes a jumpsuit almost. It's an interesting idea for sure. There's also this other design of Bumper that was made early on. Kinda looks like he's a mechanic or something here. But he's wearing a little cap that says 64 on it. Pretty cute. And that's cool and all, but I'm gonna be honest, that's not the main reason why I love Bumper. I love him because he got arrested. And that is like so fucking absurd. And no, this isn't some joke or whatever. Bumper officially was behind bars at one point. In this 2012 Rare blog website, a Q&A was held where fans could ask questions. A fan of Rare named Aaron asked, "Where do your beloved characters like Cameo and Banjo go when not used in any games for the next decade?" Rare themselves answered this. They said, "Where do the characters go between games? Well, they're all having crazy adventures too expensive and asset heavy to adapt into game form. Except for Bumper the Badger, who's in jail." So apparently Bumper did some heinous shit and ended up behind bars. But it's okay, because 9 years later in 2021, Rare tweeted that Bumper's been free for a while and he's sorry for all the bad things he did. When I read that, I could not believe that Rare officially said that shit. This was like Tiny Kong levels of absurdity to me. But that's all we know about Bumper. He was just some chill badger racing with Diddy Kong to prison. Next racer, Tip Tup. Tip Tup is a turtle that is clumsy and shy, and actually doesn't even like racing. He's pretty much racing out of peer pressure, which is kind of fucked up from Diddy Kong and friends. He's just here to be with them, but you know, making them do shit he doesn't want to do. I also mentioned earlier that he appeared in a game after Diddy Kong Racing. It wasn't his own game, but yeah, he did. He was a minor character in the Banjo-Kazooie series. When playing Banjo-Kazooie, if you go inside of Tank Tup's shell, you can see Tip Tup and his own choir. You play a little mini game that's pretty much just Simon Says with turtles, and then he gives Banjo a jiggy. He then reappears in Banjo-Tooie where he has an egg. Tip-Top tells Kazooie that the egg hasn't hatched in several months. Tip-Top already has 19 daughters, and because of that, he believes that this egg houses his future son, so he asks Kazooie for help. And Kazooie agrees and helps hatch the egg, which then hatches his first son, Tip-Top Jr. Tip-Top would also later appear in Banjo Pilot, but you know, like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But Tip-Top. The thing is, his origins are kind of a mystery. I've seen conflicting thoughts between if he was created for the Banjo-Kazooie prototype Project Dream, or if he was created strictly for Diddy Kong Racing as an original character. What's weird about it is that Kevin Bayliss said himself that Tip-Top was made for Diddy Kong Racing.
And well, speaking of, I guess green characters, Tip-Top also appeared here, and then later reappeared in Banjo-Kazooie. Do you remember did he start in Diddy Kong Racing before also appearing in Banjo?
He started in DKR.
So that makes me even more confused why people say Tip-Top was made for Project Dream. Like, I don't know if they pulled that information out of their ass or something, or if there's like some truth to it, like from a dev. But I don't think Kevin Bayliss would lie about something stupid like Tip-Top being created for Diddy Kong Racing. So I don't really know where the fuck the Project Dream Tip-Top thing came from, but I think it's probably false. If you know where it originated from, let me know. I genuinely want to know. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm fucking wrong. Regardless, Kevin Bayliss had said some other information about Tip-Top that is pretty interesting. Apparently when designing Tip-Top himself, he resembled more of a dinosaur instead of a turtle, fitting in with the whole prehistoric route the team was going with. This early Tip-Top design was also described as looking pretty similar to like Yoshi from Mario. And that concludes everything about my man Tip-Top. Finally, we're done with the base roster. There's now the two unlockable characters, Drumstick and TT. First off, Drumstick the Rooster. Drumstick is a character that has pretty important relevance to the overarching and deep emotional plot of Diddy Kong Racing. When Wizpig took over the island, Timber had an immediate plan before calling everyone to help. It was to just call Drumstick for help. Drumstick was known as the best racer on Timber Island, a true professional. So Timber told Drumstick to challenge Wizpig to fight for the island. Drumstick agreed. The deal was if Drumstick beats Wizpig in a race, Wizpig would have to leave the island. They raced, and nobody knew who won, but a lot of time passed and Drumstick never returned, so Timber sent out his letter to call everyone to help for the fight against Wizpig. Now you may be wondering, what happened to Drumstick? Well, after he raced with Wizpig, he apparently turned into a frog, and I shit you not, to break this curse and revert Drumstick back into a rooster, you have to run over him with your car, which is the most like playground rumor ass unlockable character I've ever heard. That's like in Melee when you microwave your GameCube you unlock Fire Mario. But who would think to unlock a character you would have to like run over a frog? At least the frog has like the red shit on his head so you know it's not like just the normal frog. But honestly, that's pretty cool. I like unlockable stuff that's not just beat X amount of races, you know what I mean? They made a whole ass other bit of the story to unlock this rooster character. That's cool as fuck. I wish more games did that. I also found out that it's a little bit different to unlock him in Diddy Kong Racing DS. You have to like pull on a random frog like it's a fucking slingshot and let it fly into the air to hit the drumstick frog off a ledge so then you can run over him. Finding footage for that led me to this awesome video by Great Video Game Videos. Pretty cool shit. But that's all there is to Drumstick. No like special development history that I could find. Just an interesting unlockable character. Now the final playable character, TT. He's a talking clock that just walks around at first. You can talk to him and activate time trial mode, which is what you'd think TT stands for, time trial. But Kevin Bayliss actually remembers the dev team calling him TikTok. So TT's full government name is TikTok, and I didn't fucking know that until now. You can race TikTok if you have all the pieces of the TT amulet, and once you beat him in every race with every vehicle in time trials, you can unlock TT as a playable racer, who is by far the best character in this game. He just has like by far the best stats. So if you want a perfect race in this game, you need to use TT. This next bit about TT isn't even necessarily from Diddy Kong Racing, but people believe it to be a reference to TT. In Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, there's this dude named Trophy Thomas, who also abbreviates his name as TT. That would be a small thing to compare at first, but then you realize he also gives the player TT trophies, and you get these TT trophies for getting the fastest time possible during different challenges he gives you. So both of these TTs give golden rewards for doing stuff quickly, and I think what seals their connection is that they both literally abbreviate their name as TT. But we've seen the real TT pretty recently, even after Nuts and Bolts. The most recent time we've seen TT himself is in this prototype screenshot of Sea of Thieves, another recently rare-made title. It's TT in this crude-looking bar, with the caption, "It's been 20 years since Rare released Diddy Kong Racing. TT reckons it's time for a drink to celebrate." This was tweeted by Greg Mayles, and Greg Mayles never worked on Diddy Kong Racing, but he's made some games that you've definitely recognized. Here's the list on screen. Tick-Tock the Clock obviously wouldn't make it into the final Sea of Thieves. It was just a little joke. But it's cool to see stuff like this in general, seeing that Rare really does think about these characters a lot, or at least enough to make little jokes like this in the first place. That's every playable character in Diddy Kong Racing. But to be really conclusive about the weird cast of Diddy Kong Racing, I have to mention some of the other important characters that appear in this game. I'll try to make it quick. Taj the Blue Elephant. He serves as the tutorial guide to a degree, and is a very prominent character, even later becoming playable in Diddy Kong Racing DS. Taj is actually an ancient genie, and was evicted from his mountain home, as well as being cut off from his lamp because of Wizpig's tyranny. He acts as the tutorial guide and trains you to beat the evil Wizpig. Now, that's it in terms of the actual game for Taj, but it was revealed by Kevin Bayliss that before becoming a blue elephant, he was going to be a hairy mammoth, but it didn't look right with the N64 limitations, so it was changed to the design we know today. And even though he isn't playable in the N64 version of Diddy Kong Racing, there's evidence to suggest that he was planned to be playable. In the beta files of Diddy Kong Racing, there's a character select instrument change that goes unused, and it sounds like it could have belonged to Taj. Like I mentioned before, this instrument change only happens when you hover over a character to select them. So Taj was probably going to be playable, and this was the theme they would have used when you hovered over him. Now, Wizpig. I could not make this video without talking about Wizpig. I've tossed around his name so many times throughout this video. So it would be disrespectful to not talk about the intergalactic space pig. Known as the Big Bad Bully, Wizpig is a fucking maniac. His backstory shows what I mean. One day, Wizpig was living his life, as you do, doing his thing. But he was really bored, so he decides to conquer his entire home planet, and he succeeds doing so, turning it into a futuristic theme park named Future Funland. So once he was the king of his entire world, he became bored again, and decides to conquer other entire planets. When conquering other planets, he found out about the sport of racing, which then became one of his favorite things to do. So he would race people and cause chaos all throughout the galaxy, which eventually leads him to take over Timber Island and cast a spell on the 4 guardians of Timber Island, as well as turning Drumstick into a frog. Once Wizpig is defeated in the game, the gang is all having a party, because they're celebrating they beat Wizpig. But then Wizpig is kind of a dickhead here. He scares them all off and then shoots lasers at them before dipping back home to Future Funland. Timber and friends respond by going to his actual home planet and then beating his ass in races at his own doorstep. So Wizpig understands that he's a fucking loser. And after Wizpig loses, he dies, I think. His ship would show up in the post-credits, but we never see him, so he's probably dead. Wizpig was not weak though. He even had the balls to challenge Mario of all people to a fight. It was in the one-shot manga, Mario no Bokenland, Go Go Diddy. It's a 9-page Diddy Kong Racing manga that exists. It has a really cute art style. And it's not even the only Diddy Kong Racing manga that exists. There's another one too that's very slapstick and more than just 9 pages. It seems to have a pretty decent length. I would love to make a video on this shit, but I couldn't find any translations of the lengthy one, so that kinda sucks. That's super off topic though, and way much to get into. Back to Wizpig. Obviously he's in Diddy Kong Racing DS, where you actually unlock him, which is kinda cool. But his render is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I genuinely thought this was some fan-made curse shit, but this is real. This is a real official image of Wizpig, and that would be the final time we would see Wizpig. Same with most of this cast, besides the mentions in the Twitter posts or whatever. These characters are officially dead. It sucks. We'll probably never see these guys, ever again. and that's sad. These characters with their one major appearance made one hell of an impact that I personally won't ever forget. Diddy Kong Racing is a fun-ass game, filled with so much personality. If you didn't know about Diddy Kong's friends before this video, you for sure know them now. These weird fucks are something special, and I hope one day we can see them back on the racetrack that they deserve to be on.